One day, the President of the United States and the British Prime Minister boarded the same flight to Italy to attend the NATO summit. But mid-flight, their plane came under a brutal attack. The movie kicks off with Spain's famous La Tomatina festival, where thousands of people are throwing tomatoes at each other, soaking the entire city in red pulp. Some are smashing them on heads, some right in the face. And hidden in this chaos is a joint CIA-MI6 task force hunting down a Russian arms trafficker, Viktor Gradov. He's extremely dangerous, and this is the first time in 2 years he's shown his face. They've laid a perfect trap to capture him, cameras set up on every corner. Leading this entire operation is Agent Betay. Suddenly, one of the agents spots Gradov in the crowd. The moment he appears, the entire MI6 team goes on high alert. They launch facial recognition to confirm his identity, but it's no use. Gradov is smart. He's hiding his face with a cap, like he already knew where the cameras were placed. Then 2 more people show up looking exactly like him. And right then, a gray van pulls up beside the MI6 vehicle. Agent Betay instantly senses this could be a trap, but before she can react, Gradov's men open fire. Every MI6 agent was already marked. In seconds, they're all taken out. Gradov's team hijacks the MI6 van and injects a bug into their system. Meanwhile, Agent Betay dodges the bullets and charges right at them. She's fierce, fearless. Her team often called her a one-woman army. She takes on the attackers alone. But just then, a bullet hits her, and everything goes silent. What exactly is Viktor Gradov's endgame? Whatever it is, back in the UK, Prime Minister Sam Clarke is watching the news, and every single channel is flashing just one name, US President Will Derringer. Derringer was once a Hollywood megastar with box office hits to his name, but now he's turned to politics. And in just 5 months, he's earned the trust of an entire nation. He just landed in London yesterday and is about to attend a joint press conference where he'll meet PM Sam Clarke for the first time, a man who's held office for the past 6 years. After that, Derringer will head to the NATO summit in Italy. But then, a piece of news hits Sam Clarke like a gut punch. The intelligence op in Spain had gone horribly wrong. 7 CIA and MI6 agents were killed, and their team leader, Betay, was missing from the site. She was more than a colleague. She was one of Sam's most trusted allies. The man behind it all? Viktor Gradov, the same arms dealer who supplies weapons on the black market. Years ago, NATO launched an airstrike on his weapons facility. Since then, he vanished. But now it looks like he's back, and this time, it's personal. Meanwhile, President Derringer is being briefed on the same situation by his senior advisor, Simon. Soon after, Sam and Derringer meet face-to-face. And let's just say, they don't like each other. At the press conference, the tension boils over. A disagreement turns into a full-blown clash, and that kind of friction isn't good for either country. So their advisors come up with a PR masterstroke. What if both leaders fly to the NATO summit together? That might help fix their image. After a lot of convincing, both leaders finally agree. On the other side, Gradov was furious with his sniper. One mistake, and he could have lost his most important asset. So without a second thought, he executed the sniper, brutally. Meanwhile, news outlets across the globe were buzzing with headlines about the sudden friendship between the US president and the British Prime Minister. Seeing them together made people hopeful. The two posed for some photos and then boarded their plane. A little while later, one of the kitchen crew entered the tech staff area with burgers and suddenly attacked, killing everyone inside the cabin. Then he sent the plane's exact location to his allies, who were already waiting for his signal. Within minutes, their aircraft appeared right in front of Air Force One. The threat was real, and Air Force One issued a warning to the unknown aircraft to change course immediately. But silence, no response. By now, all radios on Air Force One had gone dark. The pilot couldn't contact anyone. Tension gripped the entire plane. And then, the rear door of the unknown aircraft opened, and a wave of drones came flying out, heading straight for Air Force One. The Secret Service opened fire. 3 drones were shot down, but one slammed into the engine. That's when it became crystal clear. The goal wasn't intimidation. The goal was to bring that plane down. Then, another explosion. A drone ripped through the side door of Air Force One. The cabin pressure dropped instantly. One crew member got sucked right out into the sky. Sam and President Derringer were barely hanging on. It looked like they could be next. Meanwhile, the infiltrator who had killed the crew earlier was wreaking havoc inside. Thinking fast, the pilot pushed the plane to 10,000 feet, hoping to stabilize the cabin pressure. As the aircraft leveled out, a Secret Service agent rushed in and began moving Derringer and Sam toward the rear, where the parachutes were stored. But before they could reach, another wave of drones attacked. Air Force One released countermeasure flares. Some worked, some didn't. One more drone tore through a second engine. Now the plane began to spin violently. Panic took over. Amid all the chaos, the infiltrator grabbed one parachute and lit the rest on fire. Sam and Derringer reached just in time to see him jump. Time was running out. The plane was moments away from crashing. Somehow, the agent managed to find two undamaged parachutes. He handed them to the leaders and said, "We're about to crash over Belarusian airspace. You need to reach our safe house in Poland, Golden Mountain Mining Company, under the Gdański Bridge in Warsaw." Then he quickly explained how to deploy the parachutes. And without wasting another second, he pushed them both out of the plane. Sam, a former British Army soldier, handled the landing with control. But President Derringer, he wasn't so lucky. His parachute got tangled in a tree deep inside the forest. Within minutes, breaking news exploded worldwide. Air Force One has crashed. The President of the United States and the British Prime Minister are feared dead. The entire globe was in shock. Back in Washington, Vice President Elizabeth Kirk began the process of assuming the role of acting president. NATO needed leadership, and time was running out. Meanwhile, when Derringer regained consciousness, Sam, using nothing but instinct and experience, had already figured out exactly where he must have landed. But one thing was certain: the attack on Air Force One wasn't random. It wasn't a rogue act. It was precise, organized, deadly. Whoever they were, they'd broken through the most secure defense system in the world. That meant one thing: if Sam and Derringer wanted to survive, they had to remain dead to the world and reach the safe house in total silence. Besides, by now, every news outlet on the planet had declared them dead. The world had moved on, but the real story was just beginning. Sam was absolutely right, but Derringer just couldn't accept it. All he cared about was calling his wife. He needed her to know he was still alive. He reached for the phone, only for Sam to grab his shoe and smash it down on the device, because he knew they were still being tracked, and one single mistake could get them both killed. If the enemy picked up their location, they'd be captured and used to force demands they couldn't even imagine. With no time to waste, the two set off, but had no clue where exactly they were in Belarus. Meanwhile, back in the capital, right after the swearing-in ceremony, the Echelon security program was officially transferred under President Kirk's control. Surveillance protocols were recalibrated. All secret access now belonged to her office. But right in the middle of that transition, one of Gradov's men hacked the system, using the very same bug planted during the La Tomatina operation. In moments, Echelon was compromised. Echelon, an ultra-classified global signal intelligence system run by the US, UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, also known as the Five Eyes. It intercepts everything from emails to phone calls, faxes to satellite feeds. Back in the forest, after wandering aimlessly for hours, Sam and Derringer finally spotted a place. A small clearing where a few local guys were partying with a DJ setup, dancing like they had no care in the world. Nearby was a parked car, their only shot to get to Warsaw. They tried to steal it quietly, but got caught. Derringer figured, "Hey, I used to be a Hollywood superstar. Maybe they'll recognize me." But nope. Not only did they not recognize him, they started beating the hell out of them. Sam had already seen this coming. The moment fists flew, he exploded into action. A 6'2" wall of pure muscle, ex-military, lethal. He was unstoppable. The guys didn't stand a chance. Meanwhile, Derringer caught a couple punches himself, and that's when it hit him. This wasn't just a scuffle. These kids were seriously trying to kill them. And then, something inside him snapped. The old star came back to life, and with one perfect punch, he knocked a guy's tooth out. Literally punched a window into the fight. But the attackers weren't backing off. The fight escalated, and things were spiraling out of control. Just then, a loud blast echoed. A woman stood at the entrance, gun in hand, and just like that, the punks ran for their lives. Turns out, the house belonged to her. Sam and Derringer pleaded for help, and surprisingly, she agreed. No money, no conditions. even though they didn't have a single document to cross the border. She hid them in the back of her truck, packed with sheep, and drove straight toward Warsaw. At the border, security checks began. Sam and Derringer had no choice but to bury themselves inside the stinking, cramped pile of sheep. Derringer looked like he was going to throw up. The woman, calm as ever, handed over the papers. She even bribed the guards with a sheep. It worked. No one suspected a thing. That evening, she dropped them off at the edge of Warsaw. As they said goodbye, Derringer took off his watch, the one gifted to him by none other than Keanu Reeves, and tried to offer it to her. She smiled gently and refused. "Thank you, Mr. President," she said. Derringer froze. That's when it hit him. She'd known the truth all along, from the moment they met, yet she kept it to herself. Across the street was the safe house. They rang the bell. Facial recognition kicked in. The doors unlocked. Inside, they were greeted by a man who couldn't believe his eyes. He ran straight into Derringer's arms. His name was Marty Comer, the station agent in charge. But elsewhere, Gradov had just gotten confirmation. Echelon intercepted surveillance footage, and it showed Sam and Derringer were alive. The moment he saw it, he made the call. His team scrambled. Helicopters took off, headed straight for the safe house in Warsaw. Back at the safe house, Sam asked the one question that had been burning in his mind. Marty laid it all out. Everything that happened after the crash. First, they were attacked midair. Now, the Echelon server had been hacked. Over 20,000 top-secret files leaked. Confidential NATO operations spanning decades exposed. But the most shocking part? This wasn't an attack from the outside. This betrayal came from within. Allies stabbed each other in the back. Tomorrow's summit, it wasn't going to be about unity. It would be about blame, insults, and chaos. France had already been caught manipulating Germany's last election through a planted journalist. The Czech Republic was furious with Italy, accusing them of sabotaging their economy. And the worst part, no one had managed to regain control of the Echelon server. This was just the beginning. More bombshells were waiting to drop. Someone, a mastermind, was using Echelon to tear NATO apart from the inside. If NATO fell, authoritarian regimes would rise unchecked. And this wouldn't just be Europe's problem. It could spiral straight into a third world war. And for the United States, that was the ultimate nightmare. Meanwhile, Derringer had had enough. He wasn't hiding anymore. Just as he told Marty to call the embassy, the emergency alarm went off. Danger was at their doorstep. Thinking fast, Marty rushed them to the secure armory, fully stocked with lethal weapons. Sam and Derringer grabbed their gear and got ready. Marty quickly briefed them. "If I can't get you out, take the secondary exit. First left down the stairs, you'll find a bunker room. On the right-hand wall, there's a poster. Punch it. That opens the secret path." Meanwhile, outside, Gradov's men were rigging explosives to the door. Marty grabbed a monitor, hooked into the CCV, and started hunting. One by one, he picked them off with surgical precision. The invaders had no idea what hit them, but Marty was watching them through every lens. Sniper, strategist, silent executioner. One of them finally panicked and ran, but Gradov's core team had figured out the trick. They found the camera and shot it out. Then they moved in together and surrounded Marty. He fought, but he didn't make it. Sam and Derringer saw it all. No time to mourn. They bolted down the hallway. Just around the corner, the poster, the one Marty mentioned. Derringer threw a punch straight through it, and a hidden door slid open. But right then, Gradov's men arrived. The hallway lit up with gunfire. Sparks flew off the walls. Bullets chased them down the narrow passage. Sam and Derringer dove inside, slammed the door behind them, and found a lift. Without wasting a second, they jumped in and escaped. But the moment they hit the street, two armed men were already waiting. It looked like this was the end. Then, out of nowhere, a police car came tearing toward them and ran both shooters down. Behind the wheel was Agent Betay, the same woman MI6 had declared dead, the same leader who vanished after the failed mission in Spain. Sam locked eyes with her, and everything froze. Shock, relief, and the weight of a friendship forged in fire. Because in the eyes of the world, they were both dead. Seeing each other alive was a miracle. Years ago, Sam and Betay had worked together. They weren't just colleagues, they were close. "How the hell are you still alive?" Sam asked. And Betay told her story. How she survived the Spanish op, how she stayed underground, and how she never stopped chasing Viktor Gradov. She spoke and pulled the trigger. The car bomb exploded, taking out the last of Gradov's team. Betay continued. While tracking Viktor Gradov, she stumbled upon a critical lead. His son, A brilliant young scientist, the kid had designed a revolutionary nuclear reactor, one that could never suffer a meltdown. The tech was called Pebble Bed. The entire concept, it was his, but America took the credit, claimed it as their own. Gradov's son had nearly completed his work. He only needed enriched plutonium. His father got it for him through the black market. But once Echelon picked up the signals, NATO suspected Gradov was building a new kind of nuclear weapon. And then came the response, a preemptive strike. They bombed the boy's facility, killed him. America didn't just take his life, they stole his legacy. Later, the very same technology was paraded to the world as a U.S. innovation. The president even bragged about it, not knowing the cost, not knowing the blood behind the brilliance. That's when Gradov swore vengeance, not just against a country, but against NATO itself. But this kind of operation, he couldn't do it alone. Someone on the inside was helping him. The first suspicion fell on Sam and Derringer's own advisors. They were the ones who forced them onto the same plane, into the same summit. But no one knew who the traitor really was, or how many were involved, which meant heading to the U.S. Embassy was a suicide move. Betay had a new plan: get them both to Trieste, the most secure zone on the continent. That's where the NATO summit was about to happen. Within minutes, the three of them boarded a train. But through Echelon, Gradov's men tracked Betay's location. Not long after, when Derringer drifted off to sleep, Sam quietly started talking to Betay. They had a past, once lovers, now separated by politics, duty, and time. But that was history. Betay stepped out to grab something to eat, and that's when Root walked in, along with another man, both armed. In a shocking twist, Root turned on his partner and shot him point blank, but not before his partner fired back, hitting Root in the stomach. Betay returned, gun drawn, and demanded answers. Root confessed. Gradov had blackmailed him. He was the one who built Gradov's secure communication system. But now he wanted to make things right. Gradov is watching you through Echelon, he warned. The next station is your death. Jump the train. Go to Zadar, 12 Lavaska Street, 5th floor. There's a secure terminal. He grabbed Derringer's hand and scribbled something. Run this command. It'll reveal which top-level security official is working with Gradov. With that, Root collapsed and died. And without hesitating, all three jumped off the moving train. Meanwhile, Gradov's plan was moving full speed ahead. The next morning, NATO would vote, and already 25 nations had chosen to withdraw. President Kirk was losing control. Fast. Across the border, Betay stole a car and raced straight to Zadar, to the address Root had given. On the 5th floor, hidden inside a shipping container, they found Root's secure office and the terminal. But just then, black SUVs rolled up outside. Gradov's men had arrived. Time was short. They had to pull data and fight off enemies floor by floor. Sam took point. Betay worked the system. Suddenly, the attackers charged the stairs. In the chaos, Sam made a mistake. One of the grenades in the weapons bag had already lost its pin. He didn't think twice. He hurled the entire bag down the stairwell. The explosion shook the building. The stairwell was obliterated, but Gradov's men weren't done. Now they were using auto-ascender guns to scale the building from outside. Sam lit a flare, crouched in the shadows, and waited. The moment the first one appeared, Sam launched the flare straight into his helmet. The man didn't just fall, he dragged others down with him. Gradov's men finally pulled back. Plan B was now in motion. As the terminal booted up, the truth hit like a freight train. The traitor was Bradshaw, President Will Derringer's own advisor. For 18 months, she'd been secretly communicating with Gradov. All of it was in the records. And just then, chaos. A massive hook crashed into the container, and a chopper yanked it straight into the air. Metal screeched as the container ripped through the walls, lifting both Betay and Derringer off the ground. Trapped inside, in the helicopter, sat Gradov, rocket launcher in hand. He fired, a direct hit toward Sam. Betay could only watch, helpless. There was only one move left. Before Gradov finished the job, they had to jump. Up ahead, a rooftop. The chopper was about to pass right over it. They waited for the moment and leapt. They slammed into the rooftop hard, but they were alive. The container? Gradov dumped it, let it fall like dead weight. He was convinced all three were dead. He even clients. But then, a message came through to the men sitting in front of Gradov. One look at their faces, and Gradov knew. They're planning to erase me too. He didn't wait. He shot both men dead. By dawn, Betay had gotten Derringer to the Trieste port. There, Derringer called President Kirk directly, told her everything, including the truth about Bradshaw. Kirk was stunned. All she could say was, "You come back now. I'll send the beast to get you. I'll try to delay the vote until then." The beast, the president's bulletproof limo, a fortress on wheels. Moments later, the beast arrived. They climbed in without hesitation, but something was off. The man in front of them had a gun. It was the same guy who sabotaged the plane. The whole mystery snapped into place. Bradshaw wasn't the traitor. It was Vice President Elizabeth Kirk. She wanted Derringer dead and the presidency for herself. Gradoff, just a pawn in her game. Without missing a beat, she ordered her agent, "Take them to the drop site. Finish it." But Derringer didn't blink. He lunged, throwing her off balance, and he and Betay attacked the gunman. A shot rang out. The driver was hit. The car veered wildly. Outside, Gradoff's men were already closing in. Escape seemed impossible. Then, out of nowhere, a car crashed through the attackers. It was Sam. He leapt into the beast, laid down cover fire, and shouted his story. Together, they fought tooth and nail, and finally made it to the NATO summit venue. Inside, the meeting had already started. Italy and France were ready to pull out. Even President Kirk was preparing to announce the end of the alliance. But right before she could, Sam and Derringer burst through the doors. They laid it all bare. The truth, why NATO still mattered. Kirk argued, "We pour in money, troops, power, and get nothing in return." She was about to finish her speech when a single shot echoed through the hall. Kirk collapsed, silent forever. Gradoff had arrived, for revenge. She'd used him and tried to have him killed. He was done playing games. He hurled a grenade into the center of the room and gave the order, "Kill them all." Gunfire exploded across the chamber. Panic erupted. People ducked, scrambled for cover. In the end, Gradoff tried to flee by chopper, but was taken down before he could escape.